Hi everyone, and welcome to video number 7 on the American West. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, is about a religious group called the Mormons. Now, we've looked at different reasons why people decided to move to the American West, for example, land or gold. We looked at different trails, particularly the Oregon Trail, also the California Trail. This video, ladies and gentlemen, is looking at one specific reason. It's religion. This one particular group, who we will call the Mormons, also known as the Church of Latter-day Saints, but Mormons is a bit easier for us to say. Now, they had a particular reason for moving west, and it was a simple one. They wanted to flee or move away from persecution and bullying. They were constantly being attacked and criticised. Now, why would that be? Do you know? Why were the Mormons persecuted? Well, there were a few reasons. First of all, they were started by a man called Joseph Smith over in a part of America called Ohio, and their numbers began to grow. This fed into the reasons why they were persecuted. Maybe the most important one, they had a belief in something called polygamy. What does that mean? It means quite simply that a man was allowed to have more than one wife. Now, the rest of the American people, they got offended by this. They did not like it. They thought it was almost blasphemy, going against their own traditional values. So polygamy and blasphemy meant that the other Americans did not like the Mormons and they would attack them. At the same time, the Mormons had a belief totally against slavery. They thought it was wrong. But at that time in America, ladies and gentlemen, slavery was legal. And many people earned a huge amount of money from slavery. So here's a group of people saying we should stop slavery. That will not be popular amongst certain groups of Americans. So there's another reason why they were not liked. Also, the Mormons were quite friendly with the Plains Indians. Now, if other white Americans are saying, look, it's our manifest destiny, if you remember that phrase from previous videos, if it's our manifest destiny, our God-given right to take whatever land we want, including Plains Indians land, and here you've got a group of people saying, no, we need to be friendly and respect the Plains Indians, that again will be unpopular. So there were a variety of reasons why the Mormons were persecuted. Smith is converting people and more people were becoming Mormons, so they gradually began to be seen as a threat. Polygamy, blasphemy, anti-slavery, friendly with the Indians. Put that all together and the Mormons were upsetting many people. They were unpopular with many people. As a result of that, they were persecuted. Smith, for example, the leader of the Mormons, he was actually killed. And he was replaced by a man called Brigham Young. And it's Brigham Young that we will really concentrate on for the rest of this video. Now, let's have a look at our map. We had a look at this one in the previous video. People moving west, the black line, the Oregon Trail, we've looked at that. This green line going down here to California for the gold. This was the way that the Donner Party got stuck, if you remember the previous video. But here we have just this little red line here going down to D. Let's have a look at D. Salt Lake, the Great Salt Lake, gradually then became Salt Lake City. This is where the Mormons headed for. Now, as I said, they started in Ohio, all the way over here, persecuted, so they moved to Missouri. Guess what happens? Yeah, persecuted. Then they moved to Illinois. You guessed it, persecuted. So it was from here that Brigham Young then says, well, I think we need to move to a place where there's nobody. And let's try all the way over here. So it's this journey that we're going to concentrate on today, all the way down to Salt Lake, the Great Salt Lake. Now, remember, wherever the Mormons went, they were persecuted. So Brigham Young, the new leader, says, we need to go where hardly anyone lives, because then we'll have the freedom to lead our own particular life. And no one will bother us, no one will criticize us, no one will persecute us. So he chose Salt Lake. At that time, Salt Lake was part of Mexico. Well, that would be attractive to the Mormons. Any ideas why? Well, if it's not in the United States, it can't be ruled by United States law. So it made sense for Young to lead the Mormons out of the United States, and he chose Salt Lake. Now, they wintered 1846 before the big move to Salt Lake. They stayed in a place called Omaha. It was a very harsh winter, and over 400 people died. But they were getting ready. The next year, the key year, 1847, the final push towards the Great Salt Lake. Now, Brigham Young was a good leader. Briefly, let's just compare him to George and Jacob Donner from the Donner Party in the previous video. Remember the terrible things that happened to the Donner Party? Well, we can look at the two and compare them. If you go with Donner, then you'll end up a goner. If you go to Utah, you'll have a secure future. If you go with Donner, you'll see the desperation. But you'll be safe with Brigham Young because of preparation. Hey, terrible poem. But the key word is preparation, being prepared. Now there's the old saying, I mentioned it in the previous video. Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Well, Brigham Young was not going to take that chance. He was a good leader, and he recognized how important good preparation was. He made good decisions. Well, what did he do? He split the Mormons into smaller groups. Each small group had a leader. So they're not traveling in a mass together. No, they're in smaller, more compact groups with a good, proper leader for each group. He would say to, look, if we're under attack, circle our wagons. It gives us safety. It gives us protection. It gives us a barrier. And it will keep our animals, our livestock, safe. He made good decisions. He was a very disciplined leader. People obeyed him, people followed his instructions, and he gave good instructions. There was discipline in the camp. He ensured that there was regular rest periods. That's vital. So then the oxen are not going to get exhausted, so they'll still be able to pull the wagons. That did not happen with the Donner Party, but it did happen with the Young Party. He made a very clever decision. He's got thousands of people to move. Well, he doesn't take them all at once. No, he takes a smaller group, what was called almost like an advance party. About 150 of the strongest, fittest people. Not too old, not too young, the best people. And they led the way, clearing the path and then marking the route for others to follow. That was a very sensible decision. And what they did, as this advance party went first, they planted crops. Well, hey, what a sensible move that is. Because then later, when the other groups are coming through, the crops will have grown and there will be a food supply. so they will not run out of food. It's clever. It's simple looking back now, but it was a good decision to take by Brigham Young. He made sure that his advance party was well supplied. They had portable boats so that they could cross rivers. Young made the best he could of the mountain men. He spoke to mountain men. He said, look, I want to do this. What is your advice? You've been there. What's your experience? Tell me what I should do. Now compare that approach to the Donner Party, where they read Lansford Hastings' guide but didn't speak to anyone. Lansford Hastings hadn't been that way. Brigham Young was getting experienced help and good advice. So his advance party made it to Great Salt Lake. And because of his good preparation, 1847, a second group arrived of Mormons, over 1,500 people. They arrived safely at the Great Salt Lake. And the credit for that, a lot of it, has to go to Brigham Young and his preparation. Allegedly, when Brigham Young got there, he saw the Great Salt Lake and he said, "It is enough. This is the right place." Stage 1, the journey was complete. But Young still had a massive task ahead of him. Stage 2, a big job, was to try to set up a proper, viable community. And guess what? Brigham Young managed it. How? What did he do that made him and Salt Lake a success? Well, again, I don't think you'll be surprised to hear, ladies and gentlemen, it's about preparation and organisation. Young was in complete charge. No one disobeyed him. They all respected him. There were no arguments. He made good decisions and then people followed the decisions. They were put into place. The Mormons, remember, they are a religious group. Their religion and their religious faith encouraged very hard work. They were determined not to give up. They were determined to make a success of it. Because what's the alternative? Go back to where they were persecuted? No, they wanted the freedom to live their life. And if it meant working hard, they were prepared to do it, following Young's great decisions. All of the land was taken and it was owned by the Mormon church. And the church leaders, particularly Young, could then make good decisions about how to split it up and how to use the land most effectively, the real efficient use of resources like land, water, timber. It was all organised, ladies and gentlemen. Now, possibly the most important one. The clue is in the name, Great Salt Lake. Well, salt water is difficult to grow things, ladies and gentlemen. The salt will kill them off. Again, Young had an answer. They worked out and they found out that the streams that ran into the Great Salt Lake were not salty. It was just the salt in the lake itself. So the streams, the water there was fine. It was fresh water. So the Mormons, again, working hard, following Young's decisions, dug irrigation ditches or channels or little trenches. And then the fresh water could spread out and then they could plant their crops and water their crops and the crops would grow and people would be able to survive. The irrigation ditches, key to the success and survival of the Mormons at the Great Salt Lake. We come towards the end. What else did Young do? Well, he looked at all the people, said, right, you're good at that, you're good at something else, you're good at this. And he organised it properly so that each community had the good, essential mixture of all the key skills needed to survive. So everyone would have carpenters, farmers, blacksmiths, etc. All the communities had the necessary skills to survive. And the final one comes down to our old friend money. Well, Young set up a scheme to attract more people. He's got to have people come, otherwise there'll be no community. So he needed to attract people from other parts of America and also in Europe. And indeed, thousands came all the way from over here in England. And this money or scheme was called the Perpetual Emigration Fund. And that means we will give money, we will loan money to people who wanted to move to the Salt Lake. Mormons who wanted to go on that journey were given money to pay for it. And when they arrived, they would set up, start farming, get money, crops to sell, and then they would repay the loan back to the Mormon church. So because of the Perpetual Emigration Fund, a flow of people kept on coming and settling on Salt Lake. Between 1847 and 1869, so just over 20 years, 70,000 Mormons arrived. So that's about 3,000 a year, just over. Salt Lake gradually grew into a modern, big, efficient city called Salt Lake City, which is still there today in the American state of Utah, started by Brigham Young and his very, very good preparation, organization, and decisions. So much so, in the year 2002, Salt Lake City actually held the Winter Olympics. It's a proper, normal, big city, started by this group of travelers fleeing persecution, the Mormons. That's the significance of the Mormons in that particular part of America, all the way down here in Utah. So, I hope it's been useful looking at the Mormons, one group of settlers. Well, we've got one final group to look at, ladies and gentlemen, and that's the gold miners. And that's coming in our next video. Hope it's been useful. All the best now. See you soon.